So what are we talking about today? We're talking about everything. I guess the big thing really is as we work at different businesses and all, there are patterns that keep repeating themselves. And these are patterns that help us hit our goals or hit our targets, reach the goals that we want to get, to be more consistent with what we work at, or even how we deal with people or the journey in itself. So I guess today we're just really going to freestyle, talk about those things as to how they affect us and how we use them each day to keep building, going forward.
Yeah,
So
there's something that hit me this morning that I thought would be interesting to chat with you about. And it was a post by someone new that I follow on LinkedIn, and she said it was so interesting when she stopped chasing the external money, right? What happened to her when she stopped chasing the stuff and stopped chasing the status, and actually, how it felt to be in that room with, there was, a lot of people with a lot of money, but there was just this energy missing. There was this abundance mindset was missing. Like, people just felt still not fulfilled. And, I would say for me, and I don't know your specific journey, but I am certainly one that has really gotten away from that external stuff. Like, I really it used to matter. And I think, growing up, not intentionally or unintentionally, that was something that it mattered, right? The nice vehicles and the house and the brands and the clothes and it just, for whatever reason, it was just that. But you realize, it took me a while to realize, it's nice to have that if it's for you, but when it's for the validation of others, it takes away from that. So just this, the last 5-6 years of really leaning into my inner confidence, my inner self, how I feel, it seems to be the closer I get to, confidence and comfort with me, the less I care about the external validation at all. And I don't know if you can speak to that, or if you've had a similar journey or path.
yeah, I agree. I mean, I think when I was much, much younger, when I say much younger, I mean under 22, I thought that meant, a lot because it was a status type thing. But then as I started getting older, it was more the utility of things. So for me, I want a car that will take me from A to B. Now I feel that, okay, look, I've worked hard enough that I shouldn't be driving a rust bucket. However, if I had to drive a rust bucket because I had to adjust because of economics or something, I will do that, right? It's not, the car doesn't define me. And I think that at the end of the day, I want to be known more for what's between my ears than, what stuff I have, and stuff can be replaced. And the thing with stuff anyway really is that if you want to appear and use stuff as or things that you buy, material things, you could go get things on, you could borrow money to get things, right? It doesn't really mean you own something, you could, but it doesn't do for me. I like a good computer because it helps me do my work. I like a decent tennis racket, although I've had the same tennis racket forever. I even have one that's been, I think it's over 20 years old. And then I have one that I bought on a sale somewhere about, 8, 10 years ago. I'm a recreational player. They work, right? So I'm not looking for the latest and greatest. I'm not into brands. I just wear whatever I wear. If I see something that catches my eye and I see it at a good price, I'll buy it. I will buy things from Value Village, right? Some things I'll get secondhand. I don't care about that stuff. It doesn't make me any better or worse. And I think at the end of the day, it's you. I think we all get to a stage where you figure out, okay, this is life, and this is what you want your life to be like, and it doesn't matter what the externalities are. You just do what you have to do to get to where you want to go to. And then I think we then shift for I guess we shift where we get validation from. I guess there probably was a time where when somebody says, "Ooh, that's a nice car, or that's a nice bike," that will mean something. It doesn't mean anything now. I think what means something to me is if you say, "Geez, Emo, it's great how you connected to those universities abroad and did something." That gets me going. I feel good about that. And again, that has to do with me trying to help people do stuff. It's not really my thing. So those are the kind of things that, if someone gives me a compliment on, it means a little bit more than you tell me I have a couple of houses, I have a couple of cars. That's just, anybody could do that, right? So that's the shift for me. It's more the things I value now are, did I build IP or assets that could help people? Am I transferring knowledge so that the younger people coming up could do life better? If you commend me on those things, then yes, you get me. Anything else doesn't matter. I could buy as many cars as I want tomorrow, doesn't matter. But helping that one kid somewhere do something better, that gets me, right? So,
Yeah, no,
that's the shift.
I love that. I love that. I wrote in my journal last week, and I keep coming back to it. I stopped chasing money. I started chasing moments and connection.
Yes.
And it's just it's a simple shift, because the irony is that when you chase the moments, when you really, like, for me, wealth now is really about moments. It's about flexibility. It's time with my kids. It's having the ability to, just take a half a day when I want to take a half a day, and, connect, or, be on a baseball field. I said this weekend on Saturday afternoon, it was, a beautiful sunny day. We were at a baseball field down by the water, nice breeze, it's not too hot, not too cold. And I was like, this is what it's all about right here. Connected with my kid.
Right.
I'm coaching, I'm on the field. Like, that for me is way more fulfilling than, even closing the biggest deal of my life. Like, yes, of course, that is good. And I do love that.
Right.
When I've put in the hard work and you get rewarded. But I've really started to chase moments and less chasing money. And then the money, the irony is it works out for, right? Like, the less I feel, like, the less that I'm focused on, like, that grip or controlling, or just, overthinking about, like, having to get the next thing, the more free flow life seems to come to you when we're not trying to control it.
Amen to that. Yeah, I think it's almost like when you're chasing money, it's like you're swimming upstream. When you're not chasing money and you're just going for the moment and going for people, it's like you're just swimming downstream. You just keep on going faster and faster without even really trying, right? So, yeah, there's something to be said for that. And I guess maybe in a way, society has created this thing where we almost measure ourselves with what we have, right? Nobody says, "Oh, did you help somebody do something, or did you spend time with your kids?" It's not, things are not measured in that way. It's, what car are you driving, what neighborhood are you in? Those are the things which we use to mark success. And so now, I am not faulting anyone for doing that. That's just the way things are. But I think we have to decide what is our own measure of success and then work with that. It doesn't matter what anybody else thinks, right? And I'm not saying that those who think that having the car or the house, I'm not saying that's bad. It's good for them. It's bad for me. It doesn't make me happy. So I have to figure out what works for me, right?
Yeah, yeah, and to that point, it's inside, right? It's
Yes.
internal. And whatever your definition is, whatever your vision, because, I talk to you about this a lot, right? We talk about you versus you. Like, the more confident, comfortable, the more you realize, like, this is your life. This is your definition of success, right?
Yes.
Like, what's gonna fill you up? Because at the end of the day, you're looking yourself in the mirror, and you can't fool that guy,
No.
right? So the rest of the world, you can, fake it till you make it. You
Smoke
can,
and mirrors.
right? You can
Yeah.
pretend, you can put on a facade, and sometimes, we've got to maybe shift our personality a little bit, or not shift the personality. That's not the right way, but yes, you might have to try to put on a smile if you're having a rough go, or, put in extra energy. But at the end of the day, like, you stack the wins, you stack the losses, you go through whatever you're going through, you come home and you're looking the same person in the mirror, and it's like, did I fulfill me today? Did I do something that's going to be good for me, that my future self's going to thank me for? Am
Right.
I proud of the person I was? Most of the changes in my life came from that. It didn't come from, it was like it was something to do with, hey, everyone else might think, when I was making the most money I was ever making, and when I thought, people were like, he's killing it, I'd come home and I was looking at myself going, I don't like the person I am. I
Yeah.
had a chip on my shoulder, and I may be doing things a little differently than I would. I got away from my values. So then I go, well, wait, that doesn't feel really good. The outside world might look and say, he's doing amazing. But for me, it didn't feel right. So I think, that, again, that shift is, it's you versus you. It's your life. the less outside noise that we have, if we can control the outside noise, right? And you're going to get it. What I find too, you know, and even like, I love my family, I love my friends, but oftentimes out of their fear, they might be the ones that are putting the most pressure on you, or the ones holding you back, right? It's like, well, or the should do this, or you should do that. And we really, like, I guess, again, it comes down to that person in the mirror and realizing, like, this is my life, this is my journey. Does it feel good? Does it sit well with me? You know, you can take as many opinions as you want, you can take advice as you want, but however we bring it into our own circle and the choices that we make, if we feel good about our next step, then so be it. You know, and if it's the wrong step, worst case is you're taking a new step, right? At least you're moving somewhere. But again, it's that it's that internal, that intrinsic value. And I think the closer that I can get to, and not, you know, don't get it right every day. Gosh, you know, like, there's times where you go, okay, you know, misstep that day, but, you know, like I said, stack the wins, wins and losses, right? And hopefully at the end of the day, you know, you're moving towards whatever that next version of yourself might be.
That's true. Well, I know that sometimes the closest people to us mean well, but I think that the closest people to us don't necessarily know what's going on in our head. They don't know the sum of our risk tolerance, the sum of our knowledge, or the sum of the trials and tribulations we have overcome in the past that give us the confidence to take that next step, which to them, because they haven't gone through that path, seems like a big risk, right? So I remember when I was buying a house in 2020, in October of 2020, middle of the pandemic, you know, you would have thought, geez, you know, that's the worst time to do whatever. But that actually has happened to be my best, my best investment, right? So, so people who would say, oh, well, the risk of this is that, because they don't know, right? And so I always say, if you're going to get advice on something you're going into, talk to somebody who's walked that in that shoe, who understands that, who's gone through that, because then they're in a better position. But even then, after they give you advice, you still have to kind of go back in and think about it, you know, and then figure out which one works best for you. But these people tend not to be, you know, friends or family. They tend to be other people in business, or other entrepreneurs who've walked that road and understand that part of the business process is you try some things, you fail, you know, and then you try again, you know, you get up. Right. And again, from that, trying things and getting up and trying things leads me to the topic of consistency and how this thing is for the long term. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, I always say discipline over motivation, and consistently showing up over the long term, you know, and thinking about it from a long-term perspective. So, you know, and the best scenario for me, and I've actually lived it, and, you know, it's the industry's full of it. But if you think about the fad diets, or the, you know, everyone will say, like, get rich quick, or the fad diets, right? How do they work? You know, they might work for a time period, but then what happens is we go back to our old routines, or we go back to whatever we were doing. And normally, you know, whoever lost the weight puts the weight back on, or, you know, the person that won. How many times have you heard the person that wins the lottery and they don't have the habits in place to be, you know, financially sound? So they go back to their old routines, and, you know, they spend all the money, right? So for me, consistency is, again, it's about building confidence credits. So, you know, consistently showing up, however you can, time after time. And, you know, when you stack those little wins, and, you know, and I can tell you in 2021, you know, just through the pandemic, coming out of the pandemic, it was probably my deepest, darkest times, right? And I just remember thinking, again, it was like, okay, well, it's you versus you. There's people that are out there to help you, but no one's coming to save you. And the irony is, what got me out of it was just consistently starting to stack small things. So it started with, hey, I'm going to get up in the morning, I'm going to make my bed, you know, I'm going to make sure I get water into me first thing, and I'm going to do some jumping jacks to get my overthinking brain starting to act. Okay, that I can consistently do that, and then I can do that for me. I'm going to make sure that I get 20 to 30 minutes of movement in every day. because I can consistently control that and I can do that. And you know what happened? I was 20 pounds overweight, and then all of a sudden, you know, consistently over a year, you start to build those habits, and you know, showing up for myself, and it's there. It's, you know, it's built into the identity of who I want to be. So I think, you know, the more consistent we can be, and same thing with relationships too. If you think about the relationships that work, it's not by accident, right? They're consistently showing up in a way that is reflective of who they want to be and how they want to serve other people. And, you know, you can't not invest in something. So if we're not consistent in our actions, in our intentions, then I think we're setting ourselves up for failure. And usually it's a product of, you know, everyone looks for motivation, you know, and I give the example, pick on my poor dad here for a second, but, you know, my dad said, you know, he's older, he's, you know, getting to an age where he's, you know, trying to find the motivation. He says, I just don't have the motivation to get moving. And, you know, I'd say discipline comes first. Do the action first, and then watch what happens with your motivation. You know, if you do something, you're going to feel good about it. You're going to remember that feeling, and then you're going to say, maybe I want to do that again. Right.
Oh, yeah.
It's not the other way around. If we wait to get motivated and we're sitting on our couch or we're just sitting still. So, you know, and then, okay, well, I like doing that. Maybe I can do that again tomorrow. And then you start to do that consistently over a period of time, and then watch what happens. But, you know, the flash in the pan, the quick fix, you know, I've done it. I've learned it the hard way. You know, I've tried network marketing, get rich schemes. I've done a few programs to help me get kickstarted, maybe in a diet or something. But, you know, really it's been what I've been able to consistently do over a longer period of time that's been the most successful for me.
Yes. Well, I agree 100% to that. And I think maybe in addition to that, a practical step to that is for us to figure out those things we have to do every day, right? So you mentioned, you know, doing making your bed, drinking water, doing some jumping jacks. So those are the list of things you have to do. So I also say with business and with the other things, you have to figure out what are those core things, the little things you have to do every day, the little raindrops that make the ocean. And if you know those things, that's one half of the battle. Then the next half of that battle is doing those things. I think from what I see that quite a number of people don't know what those little things are, or they haven't taken time to figure out what those little things are. So yes, they make the bed, but then they carry on with something else, right? Or this other person does the jumping jack and carries on with everything else. And because they don't have the list of things you have to do, because it's not just one thing, there are a whole bunch of things you have to do. Those things together is what creates the momentum that takes you to where you want to go. And so I think maybe a lesson here is for people to actually take time
Right.
to figure out what those things are. And if they don't know, seek somebody. You know, it could be a performance coach, it could be an advisor, it could be a good friend, it could be somebody who is doing what they want to do, to help them break down those little things they have to do every day. So they now have, it's almost like the blueprint, it's almost like GPS. You have something to follow. Because, you know, you don't have to think about any of the other externalities. You just do those things every day, and you do them, and over time, success will come.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. It brings me, and I'm glad you brought it into business too, because it isn't, you know, our personal lives and our business lives are not that far off. And I think that those that are looking for that, you know, they talk about work-life balance, and I always say it's got to be like work-life harmony. It has to intertwine, like this whole
Right.
idea of balance. Like you can't pretend to be someone else in your personal life and then at work. It's just exhausting. So for me, it's about finding that harmony or that mix, and that's where I think the passion comes in to choosing things that we want to do. But if you think about, I've worked a lot with small, medium-sized businesses and entrepreneurs, and then I had the opportunity to work with Fortune 100 companies. So you learn to see what Fortune 100 companies do, and then, but they're really focused on more performance excellence. So they break things down very clearly. Like, what are the things that we need to focus on in the next 90 days? You know, what are the things that we're going to do this week that's going to align to wherever we're going to go? And it is those really being, and entrepreneurs in general, sometimes, we're so busy at trying to put out the storms, put out the fires, or there's another storm coming, or there's somebody else that's calling, and that sense of urgency, if you're not clear on what the priorities are, it's really easy to get distracted, because
Right.
there's a difference between being busy and being productive, right?
Yes.
So, and we've all got caught in it. I'm caught in saying, geez, man, that last week, it felt like chaos. I was so busy, but I don't know what I got accomplished. Versus, being, again, here comes that word discipline again, but being disciplined to say, I've actually set something up for the next 30 days. I want to accomplish this. Is this actually filling that bucket? Is this moving myself towards that? Or is
Right.
this completely out of right field? Do I have to just put it in the hopper and save that idea for another time? But for now, I'm going to stay focused and disciplined on these things. Like, these are the core things that I have to do. And then if you get all those done, great.
Right.
Maybe take on something else. So I love that when you say, like, spend the time to create the list, or to really focus in on priorities. And actually, I'm working with a lot of real estate agents right now, and that's some of the work we're doing, right? Because if you're an independent, basically you're an independent entrepreneur, you're trying to run your own business, and there's a lot of flexibility in your schedule, but there's also a lot of, hey, I need a listing here, I need to show 20 houses, and so if they're not really disciplined with what it is that they want to accomplish, or they're disciplined with their calendar and they don't know where to focus, it's really easy for someone else to control your schedule, and that's not a really good feeling at all.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, because again, I think that it's not saying storms wouldn't come. Even if you have this list of the things I have to do every day, storms will come. But the difference is, because you have that list, even when it's storming out there, you're still doing what has to be done. And then you would, close the windows or put an umbrella, but you're still doing what has to be done. And so that's how you at the end of the month get the results that you want, because you never detoured from that list of things that you have to do. Now, every now and then you're going to get some, earthquake type event in life that you have to stop everything. But other than those, there are quite a number of times you could say, you know what, this is what you have to do, and you do it. I'll give an example. Yesterday, I was given, I had the opportunity to go watch a free movie somewhere. But when I got up in the morning, I'd said, I am going to do this post about something. There's just some post I did on LinkedIn yesterday, and I had to work on a bunch of other things. And I knew that if I went to this movie thing, that's 3 premium hours in the afternoon, I'll be gone. And by the time I come back, I might be tired, and the energy level might not be there to do what I had to do. So I had to go, you know what? I need to do this thing first. If I finish on time, maybe I'll go see the movie, type of thing, as opposed to I'll go see the movie and then I'll come back and do the thing which I had planned to do before, right? So I think that that's, something that people who want to achieve things have to keep in mind, in that you have to have the list of things you have to do, so that you can do them every day in spite of the storm swirling around you, because there's always going to be that. Right.
Yeah, and I think you touched on something that it's kind of a hot topic, especially in the parenting world, but even in business, and every decision, there's a trade-off, right? So there's trade-offs when we make choices. There's unintended consequences, but
Right.
there's also, if we're looking at ourselves, and I give you this simple example, and but my son's 10 years old, and he plays sports, and he's decided to play competitive baseball. So he's playing competitive baseball. And on Saturday, he missed 2 birthday parties.
Right.
And just even there. And I tried to leave the decision with him. And, we talked about it, and it's tough, right? You're 10 years old and your 2 friends are having a birthday party.
Oh,
But
yeah.
if he wants to play competitive baseball and he wants to continue to play better, then he's got to make some sacrifices on the personal side. It starts that
True.
young, right? So if you start to make those sacrifices, it's going to lead you down a path that maybe some others aren't willing to do. So there might be some people that say, geez, it's only a baseball game. Let him go to the party. So, but for me, it was his decision at the end of the day. But for me, it was about talking to him about, look, how bad do you want to play competitive baseball? And is this somewhere you want to be? And you want to continue to get better at baseball? You're going to have to sacrifice some things that other kids aren't willing to sacrifice. And that's okay.
Very
right?
true.
So, and it's the same thing as we get to adults, right? When we have decisions, or when we want to just, if I want to take an afternoon, like you said, to do the movies, I know it's going to come at a cost, because I'm an entrepreneur. I
Yeah.
don't have just a normal paycheck and some things coming in. And so when I'm not putting in the work, then, you're not necessary. So yeah, the choices come with unintended consequences. So it's almost like you're balancing that thought process. But
Oh, yeah.
also, I said this, I think we talked about this the other day. I always say you got to be easy on yourself, but tough on your ego and your excuses, because
Oh,
your
yeah.
excuses will always come. They'll always say, well, there's well, it's a birthday party and he's only 10 years old, or, well, I worked really hard last week, so I can take it a little easier this week. Okay.
Right.
Right. But you got to be tough on the excuses. Is it holding you back from where you want to go? And who are you fooling?
Yeah.
Because again, it's that person in the mirror at the end of the day that you're looking at going, I can fool everybody else, but at the end of the day,
Yeah.
I'm
Fool
fooling
yourself.
myself. Right.
Yeah.
So what is it? Your excuses that are holding you back? And how can we make sure, like, that the priorities are in the right order, but still be easy on yourself, right? It's not an easy
True.
balance, but
Well, I know also the other thing I take into consideration is my peak energy level times or productivity times of the day. So if, for example, the movie was going to be when I feel the least productive, yeah, I could trade and go and do that, because I know that that's the time that I probably shouldn't be working on what I want to work on. And if the movie is at the time when I'm most productive, then I have to stick to the thing I have to do, because that's when I'll get the most bang for my buck, or bang for my effort, right? And so I think knowing our energy levels, what time are you most productive, what time do you need a nap, what time do you, all those things, like knowing yourself and then working around that, then I think you get a better output from my efforts when we do that. So that's big for me. I know the times of the day that I could write a blog or shoot a video and everything just happens, like I'm in the flow, so to speak. And there's some other times when I'm, swimming upstream, and those are not the times that I should be try to be productive. That's the time I could go play tennis, or I could go watch a movie and all that stuff, and everything works out well that way, right?
yeah, yeah, I mean, this is actually really good. That you're, you've got a lot going on. You're busy. You're a family guy. Um, what is it that you do? What do you do to reset yourself? Like, you talked about tennis. What are some things that you need to do where you go like, hey, I know I need to do this for me?
Yeah,
Because it's sometimes it's hard to step away, right? We're
yeah,
in it. We're like, I gotta be busy. I need to grind it out. But then, there are times where you go, I need to reset.
yeah. So for me, I've been fortunate that racket sports. So if I play tennis or pickleball or badminton, any of those things, I'll do 1 or 2 hours of that, and I'm completely reset, because when I'm playing, I can't think of anything else. I have to think about just the game. So it shuts off the fact that when I'm not doing that, a million things are going through my head, right? I go for walks with my wife. That helps also. I mean, I don't sweat as much, but it's still, you go for a walk, it's almost like a little bit of a reset. And I take naps. And my naps are legendary in that I will take a nap. I could go to bed at 5 o'clock in the evening and wake up at 9 or 10, right? So and again, because our daughter is university now, I don't have to be there to maybe, of course, if she needs me to read something or read over an assignment, I'll just work it in. So the seasonality to that was, if you go back 10 years ago, I couldn't do that because I had a kid who was young enough. She needed me to do things. Now she doesn't need me as much. She still needs us as parents anyway. So I have a little bit of that freedom. And so it's the naps, it's the racket sports. It's going for walks with my wife, going fishing. When I go fishing, I don't think of anything else. It's just myself, my wife. We go, phones are off, right? And it's just me and the mackerel or the sea bass, right? So those kind of things are the things I use to reset. Uh, the ones I do more often is if I realize I've been busy and I just need to turn off, because everything is all you get that feeling where you're just into so much stuff. I'll do that. Another thing I do is I turn off my phone. If my daughter is at home and my wife is at home, I'll just shut off my phone. That way, I'm not tempted to respond, because I'm one of those people who, if I see a message, I will respond.
You want to respond.
And it's a habit which I've done, which has brought me success. So I know that. Right. So if I see, I don't like to be the one holding the ball on the message. If you send me a message, I'll respond back. So the way to deal with that is just to turn it off or put it in airplane mode and put it aside. Right. It could be, sometimes it could be maybe 8 o'clock in the evening, depending on what's going on, or it could be, whatever, right? And just turn it off so I don't get a call, I don't get a beep, I don't get any notification. And then I also have, most notifications on my phone are off except for the ringer, and I think maybe something beeps for text. I don't get any notifications for social media. It's just, if not, you end up just looking at your phone every 2 seconds and stuff. And I think that's, I'm not a psychologist, but I think that that's probably bad for the anxiety or whatever type thing, or just mental health, to have that much, every time you hear a beep and then you have to respond. It reminds me of when you go to the motor vehicle registry place, and you're sitting down and you hear the beep for the numbers up. Even though your number is many, many numbers ahead, you still look up and you stop whatever you're doing and you look up, which is just distraction each time. And if you're working on something seriously, each time you do that, you have to reset and go back, right? And also when I work, or when I'm creating, I shut off everything else. It's just one screen, everything else, I'm not going to get a notification about anything until I'm done.
Right.
That way I could spend 30 minutes and I would get more than if I was, if I had everything else open and I had 2 hours, because each time you have to look away or respond to something, and somebody says something funny and you're laughing and typing away, and then you have to now go back and reset. So that's how I reset. How do you reset, Curtis? Since you asked the question.
Yeah, no, and it's just to tag along with the phone and the interruption. I think that's why I love, if I'm hiking in the woods, or I play ball hockey, or I'm out with my kids playing sports, I try to turn the phone off and keep the notifications. I think that's why you like it. I like it because it is just you in your head, and you go for a walk. You talked about walks with your wife, and it's been a game changer for me. Is I can almost feel myself where I'm like, I need to go for a walk. I need fresh air. And what happens, it's amazing. And I know there's science back to this, and I'm not going to quote anything specific, but it's amazing what happens. You go for a 15-20 minute walk in the fresh air, and the clarity that comes, or that thing that you were overthinking, or that decision that you can't make, it's just all of a sudden everything just becomes more clear, right? So you're in movement, you're in motion, fresh air, hopefully sunshine. If it's not, whatever, but you're walking and moving, and all of a sudden, your brain opens up and things start to free flow. So I do feel like that ability to disconnect or reset has been almost a superpower for me. I can feel it. I can feel the tension. I can know when I've been sitting at something too long. I can feel myself when I'm overthinking now. And before, I would have probably just spiraled into it, right? Just kept going. I'm going to solve this problem. I'm going to grind. I'm going to grind through it. I'm going to make this happen. I'm going to do the thing forever. It's like, I'm going to grind it out. And now it's like, nope, I know I got nothing else to give right now. It could be 2:30 in the afternoon, and or 9 o'clock in the morning, and I can feel myself getting there, and I'm like, okay, I need to reset. So it could be a 20-minute walk, could be a workout, could be just a phone call with a friend or somebody that I need to maybe bounce some stuff around. But that ability to reset when you feel yourself in that over emotional state, or we're tense, or we're frustrated, or we're just blocked, to get unstuck. It's been a superpower, because I go back to when I used to do some training with boxing, and they'd always say, everyone, you'd think that when you're angry, you're a better fighter, but it's actually the opposite. The more emotional you are, the worse you are, because you're forgetting that calmness, you're forgetting to breathe, you're forgetting and so the higher we are in an emotional state, the less productive we're going to be. So the ability to reset that with, like you said, for you, it's your, your pickleball, your tennis, or your walks, or whatever that might be. And it's, for me, it's, getting outside, it's getting a workout in, it's going for a walk. It's calling somebody that, just checking in, and just hearing somebody else that helping somebody else. That's another
Right.
thing that we talk about a lot, is just, hey, someone else is going through something, and your ability to help them or get out of your own head to, I always say, if you're feeling helpless, get helpful.
Yes.
It's the number one way to get out of your head, is just to go help someone else solve a problem. Right.
All right.
And so, those are things that I do to get unstuck. And again, I feel like it's been a superpower for me, because the grind culture, or I'm going to get through this, or I'm going to work harder than the next person. When in fact, I think there is something to say about stepping away for a minute,
Yeah.
regathering your thoughts, and then, okay, back at it.
Right. And another funny thing is, I tend to get a lot of good ideas in the shower. So, and I don't know if it's just because, again, in the shower, well, I'm not thinking about, well, I am thinking about things, but somehow it's just me and my thoughts. And so it's typical to see me, I'll finish the shower, and then I'm running in with just my towel to start writing things down, because somehow, I don't know, maybe it's like a spa or something, who knows, and I get ideas for things. So if you look at, either books I've written, or topics to talk about, or things to post, or even the framework for running this expansion abroad, it was after a shower. I just came out and I was like, ooh, So even the part where I talked about the observe, engage, and connect, those three things came out. So I was in the shower, and there was steam in the shower wall, and I wrote it out there just so I remember, right? And then came out, and I came and wrote it down, right? So those things happen for me, and I don't question it. It's just the way it is. And if doing whatever it is you do brings the ideas, then you just take them. You don't question. So I don't question any of this. Why is it that when I take a shower, I come out and I have this fantastic idea, and I do it and it flies, right? And it works out very well. I just think maybe that's the way I get my inspiration for stuff. So that's what it is, right? And so I've embraced that. And so showers, and I always use what's the name of that? I use ivory soap. I wonder if there's something in ivory soap that I have to get the scientists to go take a look at that. But I use ivory soap. I come out, I have great ideas, and they work. So there you go, Ivory. Take that one.
All right, well, I'm gonna start to worry. I'm gonna start to worry about you if you're taking 10 showers a day, right?
I know. In the summer, I could take 3 in a day in the summer, especially if I'm busy playing stuff. Well, it's not the best for my skin. I should just do 1 a day or so, but I usually take 2 showers a day.
Well, here's what's funny. And I think about that a lot, but it's the same as a walk. It's the same as if if people talk about the cold plunges, or something to reset your nervous system. So when you're in the shower, yes, you're disconnected from everybody else. You're disconnected from your phone. You're disconnected from the motivation. It's you alone. But also, too, just the water hitting your face is actually resetting your nervous system. So there's clarity that comes there, right? So, again, it's crazy to think about this, and it's so counterintuitive to what we think, right? But the more we try to grasp something, the tighter the grip. So, I said in one of the articles that I wrote in our leadership blog, I said, we have to loosen the grip to free our minds.
Yes.
Right. So if we think about it, when we're loose, when we're not expecting it, when we're like free, when we're in nature, when we're walking, when we're in the shower, imagine it's free flowing. We're not overly trying to control whatever happens next.
Right.
It's just allowing there's space for creativity. There's space for other things to come to us, versus imagine, you're sitting in your office and you have your phone on and you have all these notifications and you have the list of 25 things to do. Our brains are full. They're at capacity. We're like, nothing else can come to us right now. It's like, okay, step away, watch what happens.
Yeah.
And whether I think it's true, whether it's a shower, or, again, that's why the walks in nature. I just think that, and I always talk about that too, like control the controllables, right?
Yeah.
And it's the same thing when we start to lean into what is actually within our control. And imagine, like, if we're trying to control things that are beyond what we can control, think about the brain. I mean, we're overactive. If we started to worry, if I got up this morning and started to worry about everything that Donald Trump was doing, everything that's going on in the macroeconomics, everything that's going on in the housing market, everything that's going on in the financial crisis, imagine like I would move. I'd be like completely stuck.
Oh, yeah.
But then I go, okay, well, what's the very next thing that Curtis can do within my control? Because, yes, it matters, but not really in the context of it hasn't actually impacted me personally yet or my family. So what can I do to make sure that we have the best chance of success for today? My mom would always say that to me. Whenever I was struggling, she'd say, okay, you're looking too far ahead. What's
Yeah.
the very next best thing that you can do for Curtis? And sometimes that is a walk. Sometimes it's a shower, right? It's whatever it might be, but it's if it's within our control, if it's going to be, fulfilling, if it's going to fill one of the buckets up for us, then focus on that next step. Sometimes I think we get too far ahead in our thinking.
Makes sense. And as we wrap this up, actually, this even leads to the journey or a journey. I know I was talking to some students back in Nigeria on my call last week, and these were third-year students trying to figure out what they want to do and where they want to go, and some of them feeling like they don't have all the answers, right? And I go, I don't have all the answers. If you had asked me 2 weeks ago, will I be having this call with Curtis? Well, it's Curtis, so probably it's possible that would have happened because we always talk about doing things. But for most things, you don't know, what you're going to be doing, and sometimes when you're taking the steps to do those little things you have to do every day, they open up things that you don't even know of today, tomorrow. So I said, I don't know what I'm going to be doing tomorrow. I know I'm enjoying what I'm doing today. I have some short-term plans for what I want to do tomorrow if some things align. But tomorrow will bring whatever tomorrow brings, and then I would work with that. But as long as I know I'm doing what I have to do today, am I eating right? Am I sleeping? Am I going for a walk? Am I playing tennis? Am I spending time with family and all those things? I'm putting in the time I have to put into the business. Then tomorrow will take care of itself because I am taking care of today, right? So take care of those little things today, and then let tomorrow take care of itself. It will, right? I think what happens is the fear of not knowing what's going to go on tomorrow, stopping people from doing what they have to do today. And then that fear actually comes to fruition because they didn't do anything today. Right. So that's for me the journey. I couldn't tell you what I'm going to be doing next year. I couldn't tell you what universities I'm going to be connected to. I couldn't tell you what business partners I will get. Although I did get a call today from I guess I should wait till I call the company name, but it's the instructor in BC. I got some more information on that, or what they want me to do and all that, and exciting stuff. Again, it's about helping people,
Right.
and so it's helping people. So it's easy for me to say, check. I will make time. I'll make time for that. And I have seen over the years that in doing that, I am fulfilled. I am happy. I have all I need, and I'm happy. And maybe in the end, that's what it's all about. It's not. Yeah, money helps, but if you see someone who has all kinds of money and they're not happy, it's a sad life, right? So I'm happy and I'm fulfilled, and I know that money will keep on coming to cover my needs and then some, and to have the ability to give time and give some resources or give money to help people do things. That's, for me, I think that I would call that a happy life for Emo, and so that's kind of what I strive for every day. So you can wrap up with your journey, and then we would, how do you see today? How do you see tomorrow? And then would wrap this up for the day.
Yeah, I thanks for that. And I commend you because you're always, thinking about other people. And I think there's just a level of gratitude that you carry yourself with, and that idea of being in service of others and knowing that it's going to come back around. So you're a good example of, sometimes we lose faith in the world, or we take our licks and we go, geez, we get into that stuck mentality. And then you see people like you that are out, being of service and doing the right things, and the right things I think will eventually happen. Right. So,
yes.
Yeah, for me, interesting enough, the journey, the less I try to focus on it's the clearing the external noise. And there's a couple things that popped into mind when you were talking there. One was you talked about fear, and I think both fear and action compound. So So when we are afraid and we're fear and we're holding back, and it's in our brain, and we don't do it tomorrow, and then we don't do it the next day, and we don't do it the next day. But when we act on something, right? We act and we kind of step out of the fear a little bit, and we, even if it's just a step, you learn, and then it's like, oh, wait a second, I might not have done the perfect thing, but I did something, and I took something from that, and then I'm going to keep going, right? So, and the actions themselves compound into lessons, and they compound into carving the journey that we want. So if we're stuck and we're not doing anything and we're overthinking, and that can compound too, and then it goes, the gap gets further and further and further, and then all of a sudden the fear turns into it, instead of it being a puddle, it's an ocean, and
Right.
now we're really like, what do we do next? So for me, the journey has always been about, well, not always, I had to reflect back on this. If I think about the best times in my life, or the biggest lessons that I've learned, they've normally come from the path less traveled.
Right.
And I love that poem by Frost, when he talks about two roads diverged, and the path less traveled. When the scariest moments of my life, when I decided, oh my gosh, I'm going to move to Halifax from St. John. And, at that time, you think of it, it's all in Atlantic Canada, it's not a big deal. But at that time in my life, it was a big move. And then it was like, oh, I'm going to go to Toronto. I get this opportunity to go to Toronto. And I was like, oh my God, the city's too big. And no, I would never want to live there. And I loved it. Right. And I gained so much from there. And then it was, I'm going to go to Switzerland. And again, people were like, holy crap, you're going to go overseas, by yourself, and different country, and, all the things. But honestly, if I would have let fear make those decisions, I wouldn't have taken any of those steps. Right. So, it's actually, this is a really good reminder today of, like, now I'm thinking about what are some of the things that I'm afraid to do, that I'm just, I'm compounding that fear versus just taking the right step in the direction that I want to go.
Good. Well, yeah, it's funny how those good moments, like you said, if you didn't take the step to do something, and it's not that you had all the answers, you didn't know what Switzerland was going to bring you, you didn't know what Halifax was going to bring you, or Toronto was going to bring you. You just went. And you had some faith in yourself that at least you'll figure it out, right? Or you'll find people to help you figure it out, and you did. So I think that's the maybe that's a lesson to end this with. You don't have to have all the answers to take action, because when you take action, the answers and the help and the resources will come as you're taking action.
Yeah, and just to add to that, you talked about some of the students and stuff that you're working with, and I mentor some people as well, and that's one thing I'll always say, like, stop putting the pressure on yourself to think you have to have it all figured out. Like, honestly, you don't, right? Just do what you can tomorrow, make a decision, you can pivot. Like, life is short, but it's also, you've got a ton of time, right? If you're,
Yes.
God, if I could go back and talk to myself when I was 20 years old, and I would just say, like, stop putting so much pressure to try to have your life completely figured out and paint the picture. It's just, there is so much time, and there's so many cool things that you can do, and find some things that you love to do, and find some people that you love to be with and hang around with, and really just, focusing on that, because it's, we talked about our journey. It's your journey, right? And we are lucky enough that every day we can write the next page, or we can pivot and change the story if we want, right? So,
and I think for us, it's it's not really the destination; it's the actual journey that is fun. It's the journey that is fulfilling. It's not the end goal of, when I do X, Y, Z, and I have this, then I'll be happy. It's, I'm doing those little things are the things that bring happiness every day. And the journey, well, destination, you'll get there when we get there, or we'll never get there, because the journey is exciting, right?
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, Curtis, I'm glad we finally did this one, and I'm looking
yeah,
forward
me
to
too.
the next one. And yeah, this is fun.
It was very good. I appreciate it, man. Always good to connect, and always get some gems and some nuggets from you, and hopefully
I get from you too. I get a lot.
we'll continue on this path together.